Okay, well, welcome back. Welcome in everyone to the Spin Cycle. Once again, Andrew Southwick with you, R.C. Williams and Juliet Ormond joining us today. We've got a few stories for you that I don't think, again, I mean, we bring what the mainstream media doesn't bring because we can talk about the shiny bells and whistles, and that's fun. But what does it really accomplish? What does it really do for us? So we want to bring things that are actionable and things
That's
that
it.
actually matter.
Mhm.
Things that are the it's like it's the tide under the surface of the water that's moving it back and forth. You know, the rip current that you don't see is the one that gets you, and that's what we want to bring and make you aware of on the program. So we're going to start with a story that RC and Juliana you all brought here, and this is from your Substack. Sherlock.substack.com is where you can go. Sherlock is Sherloc. Sherlock.substack.com. And you'll find, among many other stories, this one Big I is not waiting for your vote. It's buying the politicians who will write its rules. And in the article, you note Silicon Valley is building a bipartisan political machine that rewards obedient candidates, destroys skeptics, all in an aim to convince Americans that corporate control of artificial intelligence is somehow patriotism. My friends, what's the story?
Boy, Andrew, we've been working on this one for about a week now. We wanted to make sure we had sources and everything positioned properly. So, two names that you need to remember in this big tech money fight. And I love the title from Politico. Big tech's money men don't care about the backlash because they can afford not to.
Exactly.
Remember the names Zach Moffat and Josh Valasto, two veteran political operatives, one a Democrat and one a Republican. So, their logic with leading the future, an AI related PAC that has funded such folks as Byron Donalds, his desires to be the next governor of the state of Florida, amongst others. These two gentlemen, along with some others in Silicon Valley, care very little about political affiliation. But what they do care about is their ability to influence those public servants in any way possible to move the agenda of AI from us at all costs is good. And anybody who opposes us, parents, communities, citizens asking questions, citizens exercising their right of peaceful protest and assembly, well, they're the devil. Or, as the two put it in the article, listen, this is a David and Goliath battle. And we're David against this Goliath of we the people. How could you guys do that to us? Now, they've obviously put together a ton of money and they're not shy about spending it. Andrew, they are also not shy about cutting whoever or whatever at the knees if it moves the mission forward. If a Democrat's going to get the job done, you will find they will coalesce behind them. If a Republican's going to get it done, they'll coalesce behind them. If neither one will, and they need to stand up a new hero, as the old saying goes, they will most certainly do that as well. And one other thing that we pointed out in this piece, Andrew, is obviously they are working to influence at the federal level. In essence, they want Congress to give them leeway to write legislation that will benefit them and most likely not benefit us. But that said, the other thing that we tied in here is something that we've talked about over the last few months, and that's states' rights in this process. As you'll recall, President Trump and the White House had put the pressure on a number of speakers of the House throughout the states about, hey, don't hear or move any state AI legislation through because we need a moratorium so that we can get a uniform policy together. Your rights and your people's rights be damned, as the case may be. So that's the story.
Now, they operate through a couple of different companies, American Mission and Think Big, their organization. So, American Mission works primarily in Republican races, while Think Big operates in Democrat races. And I bring that up because I think that's one of the ways that in our political sphere they can get curveballs by us. Is you have an organization, and if they came out and said who they were, obviously we'd be against them. But they can make all these other arms of their and other organizations through which to push their money, through which to buy the candidates to push their agenda. How do you see this if this is allowed unchecked? How do you see this affecting the everyday American voter? What will be the result that we will see, even if we're not seeing the signs?
Andrew, I think one of the big things that happens here is your ability to control the outcomes of what a lot of this stuff does becomes severely limited. I always take people back to two things that have happened in recent history that show this as shining examples. One being the Patriot Act. So 9/11 happens, and that is the premise that, hey, we need more protections. We need to make sure that we are safe, quote unquote. And even as we discussed last week, Andrew, it seems like in the NDAA, Section 702, which is warrantless spying, continues to get funded by Congress. That means that they can spy on you without a warrant. Very interesting how that happens and how the Patriot Act, because remember, whatever they say it is, it's the exact opposite. It doesn't do you much good. Who wrote that bill? Big defense, right? Big tech, big surveillance, all got together and said, what a great idea for us to do things. The other one is the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Remember the old line from Nancy Pelosi? Well, you got to pass it so that you can read what's in it. Congratulations on that mess. But then again, Andrew, who wrote that bill? Big health, big pharma got together. They are the experts. They got together, put that monstrosity together, and now you're stuck with it. And we've posed the same question we have the entire time. Who do you think is going to write that legislation? Because as we know, government can do very little, if anything, well. They're always going to call on those experts to help them out. And it just so happens in this instance, those experts have spent a ton of money for their seat at the table and their typewriter and their computer and everything they want to shove down your throat. How do you think that's going to end for you?
So now we, the people, have to push back on this. Like somebody was doing a video the other day about the new flock cameras that are here in Altamont Springs, right? So now we're not at the table. They're making legislation. We don't have input. And now we've got flock cameras following us, watching what it is that we're doing. This is not a constitutional republic. This is communism.
Andrew, but before we continue here, just interesting on the note about flock cameras. Isn't it interesting how that just gets pushed through or whatever, and it's magically okay? But here's the reality, right? Here's what they tell you is happening, and here's what the reality of it is. If you go on X today, you will find that Flock is boosting positive comments from people on X, which are more than likely bots that they're paying, or even the founder and CEO of Flock is on there talking about, here's how many kids were saved with Flock cameras this week, and this and that and all the other, and how good Flock is. They've resorted to boosting posts and buying ads to try to counteract the reality that they've created. Interesting times.
Yeah, that is for sure. You mentioned, some of the economic factors of AI and how they're using money. It's amazing how they have all that money to throw around. Meanwhile, you and I, the rest of us, we the people who vote are, again, I've used the phrase many times, but there's just too much month left at the end of money for most of us. And it's not because we are living high on the hog or going out to eat or having lavish expenditures. Most people are cutting wherever they can. The reason they're using credit cards to buy groceries is because they have to. There's a reason why. And do you remember, RC, it was years ago actually now, maybe almost, I don't know how long we've been doing this, maybe almost 4 years, I guess, since from the audio version of our podcast work. But remember, I talked about and mentioned when DoorDash started advertising that you could finance your DoorDash meal.
Yes, I remember that.
You remember that?
That's crazy.
And I said this, and I said then, that is a bad sign for our economy. That is a tell as to what's going to happen to us. We're going to have to start breaking up into payments our $12 or $15 burrito. Now, I think the burrito should be $3, but that's beside the point. We're gonna have to start financing that. But now you look at what's happening with some of our digital money managers and so on. You're now having to split up your payments because you can't afford to pay a mortgage or rent and your car payment and your gas and your groceries out of one check. In fact, oftentimes just one of those costs takes up 3/4, if not your whole paycheck. And that is a common theme across this country for many of us in what we call the middle class. Although, again, that's a Marxist term. I hate it, but that's what we have. I bring that up to say, because while all that is going on, this week, President Donald Trump in a Fox News interview. Here is his take on the economy right now and oil and gas and all that good stuff.
Of Iran, I had to make it. We had the best numbers that anybody's ever seen. But now you take a look with that going on, we have you just hit to get today, I think it's number 79 days. We hit an all-time stock market high.
Yep.
401ks are the highest they've ever been by double and triple.
Yep.
And then I read where we're doing badly on the economy. By the way, job numbers. We have more people working in the United States today than ever in history. We're doing an unbelievable job. Costs are coming way down. I inherited, they talk about costs. I inherited very, very high costs, and they're all coming down now. The food, the groceries, it's all coming down. We've done a great job. I think we should be given an A+ on the economy, but I think that's coming. People are starting to talk about
it. I'm sorry. People are starting to talk about it. That's true. We should get an A+ on the economy. I'm sorry, no. And again, I'm not picking on Trump. We'd be having the same conversation if this were Biden. We'd be having the same conversation if this were Harris. The same conversation if this were Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance or Ron DeSantis or any of them. The policies that we have insisted on have devalued our dollar, have caused inflation, and this has been, you really want to go back to the big blowout spending did start initially under George W. Bush with the bailouts, the TARP bailouts and things like that. That's the first time we ever heard about spending $700 billion at one time. I remember I was in my living room when they made that announcement, and it seemed like the biggest number I'd ever heard of in the world, $700 billion. Now, that's chump change. We're at $40 trillion national debt, and we are rapidly approaching, and I think just a couple years away, from the interest on our debt, the interest service on our debt being our number one expenditure from GDP. And it's unreal. So we're going to be spending money on interest, and then we're going to be spending money on, Medicare, Medicaid, the entitlements, and then after that's defense, and then after that's the other stuff. So, but how honestly, whoever's advising President Trump, can we please be honest about what's going on? Because I'm telling you, what we had primaries last night. Yes, we saw the Islam socialist win in Michigan. I'm not sure who was surprised by that on the Democrat side. There really I don't think weren't too many surprises in these primaries. We're seeing what we're having. It's the corporatist globalist GOP by and large versus the increasingly communist Democrat Party. That's what we're seeing in terms of the candidates. So, okay, fine. But I think many people want some honesty. Be honest. Just say, listen, yeah, how can you say the economy is great and you give an A+ when I'd be willing to wager that the majority of Americans are not seeing a great economy for them, that the majority of Americans are, again, seeing where they have to split up their bills over the course of their paychecks in the month. They have to get 2 jobs, maybe 3. There's the costs exponentially rise, and I'm sorry, but cost of living increases on salaries are not keeping up with that, and that's not the fault of the business owner. We are outspending ourselves into oblivion, and it's bankrupting the middle class.
Let's just say that inflation is the greatest theft of the value of our money. And all we've seen is inflation. Everything is more expensive. Nothing is even kind of close to what the pricing used to be. And we're reeling from it. And literally the middle class is being weeded out. Either you're figuring out how to stay afloat, or you're going back into the poor category. So many more people, like you said, are living off their credit cards. We shouldn't be in a spot like this. Why are we sending money all over the place to other countries? Why are we doing the things that we're doing? Why are we spending the money that we're spending when the middle class and we the people are being hurt? Are you telling me that we're a constitutional republic and you're helping we the people? They're not helping we the people. They're hurting we the people. And we're supposed to sit back and be okay with what they're doing and how they're spending our money? No, we're not okay with it.
the other thing that sticks out here, and Andrew, this is something we discussed on the Spin Cycle, I think last week. We did an entire segment where we talked about the actual unemployment numbers that come from agencies. And I believe it was something like 105 million in the US are actually employed. So here's what President Trump is saying for those who actually want to understand why he believes that it should be an A+, but what's actually happening underneath the numbers, which lets us know he's getting bad advice or whatever advice it's going to take to try to slam through the midterms, is what he's saying is unemployment is at a record low. What they don't factor into those numbers is the people who have completely given up looking for work. Now, the Bureau of Labor Statistics and others, they factor in those numbers, which is why, Andrew, the report that we cited a while back showed that very clearly of just how many people are actively not working. Now you start to wonder what they're actually doing, but I digress, right? So that's part one. Part two, kind of to Juliana's point, economically, here's the thing. Stock market's at a record high. We see these pieces every day. Here's the kicker. Is that a lot of that money that's invested is in 401k. So here's the challenge. Your net worth is locked up in something that you have little to no control over, okay? It is largely inflated because if you understand how the stock market works today, it's basically 10 to 15 companies that are just kind of passing the ball to each other, financing things and driving up the stock price, right? So it is heavily manipulated. What I always say is live by the sword, die by the sword. So if your 401k is up, your investments are up, congratulations. On paper, you are wealthier than you were before. At the same time, your Treasury Secretary is bailing out the Japanese yen because they're in trouble. Two things can be true at the same time. You can be wealthy on paper, and in 2 seconds, you can lose it all. And also, things aren't always as rosy as they seem to be once you dissect into the numbers. And I think this is perfect reason why this is called the spin cycle, is because while things may be good and there may actually be some things that are good, you can't just say it's all wine and roses, give me an A+. You got to deal with the economic reality of people who see things slightly differently than you because they're actually out in the world living and working and struggling, trying to figure these things out.
Yeah, and it is a struggle for many people. Again, some of the people that quote unquote fall out of the workforce, another demographic or another number in that is you have people who are underemployed, meaning, and underemployed now, you can be employed full time with an average salary and be underemployed for the cost of living.
Yep.
So you have people who are underemployed who are looking for second and third jobs who can't find them, who quit looking because they just can't anymore. And honesty would be refreshing, but I know that's not what we're going to get. But then, and so that is going to bring me here to our, this story here. And I want to first show this from Speaker Mike Johnson. This was a post he had on X. I will see if I can make that a little bit bigger for us all. Speaker Mike Johnson says, "This is an urgent question facing America. Are we going to maintain our status as the world's great superpower and beacon of liberty, opportunity, and security, or allow radical Marxist Democrats to destroy the very foundations that make us the envy of the entire world? Democrats now openly express disdain for America and embrace the failed, dangerous, deadly path of communism. We must take a stand and fight to protect the greatest nation in the history of the world from being overrun by many Mamdanis." Dun, dun, dun. I say that, and I make light of it because, do you know why? I have a theory. You guys tell me if this holds water. Because let me back up. I'm gonna say this again. About 6 months on the show, I did a monologue about the growing socialism in the Democrat Party. Before, I can confidently say no other show was talking about it at that time. And we talked about Mamdani and Katie Wilson and things like that, and we're seeing this. Nobody else was talking about it. We made mention of it. Well, if people were talking about it, they were joking. They were making fun of them, calling them losers. Now, all of a sudden, it's a serious thing. Why is the GOP running against socialism and communism? I will tell you why. Why I believe they're running against it, and why you're seeing it everywhere now. Because we're coming in, primary season is almost over, and I'll bet you dollars to donuts that most of what you'll hear from most Republicans is that you look at the communists overtaking the Democrat Party, you don't want the communists, vote Republican. What the Republicans are not telling you is that they are spending with no end. We're mired in wars we don't want to be in. They're getting into bed with big tech. They're getting into bed with big pharma. For crying out loud, President Trump, his nominee for CDC director, what's her name, Erica something? Schwartz?
Mhm.
She was one of the ones who persecuted the military members for not taking the jab. And she's on record in a confirmation hearing saying that the mRNA is safe and effective. You would think Trump would have learned 6 years later that maybe that's not a great person to put in that position, but there's a reason why. There's a reason why. Because everybody's scratching each other's back. We know that. So the Republicans, I don't believe, have much to run on. I think they have so destroyed their brand and then got into bed with the very people we want held accountable are the very people they've made deals with. I mean, honestly, how can they honestly run on the economy at a granular level, at a local election level, even at a congressional level in districts? They can't. They cannot look you in the eye and tell you that today is better even than 2 years ago, certainly than 6 years ago. They cannot. They can't tell you that the main thrust of what they promised they were going to do got done. Yeah, there were little things. There's nibble around the edges stuff. There's some stuff that was executive ordered that we would have liked codified into law, but that's not going to happen. So I really can't count that because it's going to be overturned in, I don't know, in a matter of months, really, a couple of years at best. So they have to run against something. They're going to run against communism. And all of a sudden now it's a big deal that the communists have infiltrated the Democrat Party. Once again, culture crossroads, spin cycle, Watchman brief. We are ahead of the tip of the spear on these stories. And we told you this was coming. We said this was coming. And now the Republicans are going to try to use it to get themselves elected because they're going to try to scare you with communism again. When really the Republicans could blow them out of the water if they had a record worth running on.
I just want to say, I mean, everything that you said is correct. You know, we've been talking about all this propaganda, all the charades, all the theatrics. And at this point, we see what's happening behind the curtain. We understand the game that they're playing. The Democrats are going, they're Israel first. And the Republicans are going, they're communists, right? And we, the people, are sitting back going, we're kingdom, right? And I don't really care if you're a Democrat or Republican at this point. I mean, we're all looking at the shenanigans of what's going on, scratching our heads in disbelief about what we're seeing, knowing that they are insane, like all of them, both sides. It doesn't matter at this point. And it's we the people, it's the kingdom people that need to start coming together. And I don't care how you vote at this point. We the people need to be coming together to talk about what's happening in DC, what's happening locally, because they're out of control and they're both in bed with each other. It's two wings of the same bird. And we have just got to come to that realization and work from that understanding forward. What are we going to do with this government? How are we going to take control about what's happening in this government? How do we get control over what's happening in our community? Because the fact of the matter is that I've got commissioners that are sitting here going, we've got the globalist agenda and just get used to it because you're going to be riding bikes and you're not going to have cars because everything's going to be carless. I'm sorry. I don't want to live in a globalist agenda area, but right now, Altamont Springs, we're captured. We're 100% captured. People like Verily Warts and I are sitting back going, how do we take back our community? How do we take back our county? Because we are 100% captured.
Something that we saw when we were driving a couple of weeks ago stuck out to me. I've mentioned it on the show before, but I'll do it again because it's important in this context. We're driving along and it's political season. So at every intersection that's a T, there are only 680 million political signs, right? There was one, obviously this person was a Democrat, but they posed a very pressing question and it made me think and also say touche. The question was simple. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And I'm like, wow, did they just kind of take a shot and kind of flip this thing on its head and force people to ask the question? Secondarily, Andrew, if I can take a moment, please. A letter to Speaker Mike Johnson. Dear Speaker, thank you for your service. In light of your recent comments, a couple of things to keep in mind. One, we're here because you're not running things properly, sir, with all due respect. If you were, the midterms would be a cakewalk. But instead, we're mired in everything except actually getting legislation passed. Thus, we live off executive orders and emergency actions that are either going to be ruled inappropriate by the Supreme Court or just fall by the wayside whenever the time is convenient. Speaker, a note for you from the American people. Do your job. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter, the American people.
That really sums it up. We are gonna have to call it here because you guys got to go. You got other stuff to do. So I want to make sure that you have enough time to make sure everybody knows where to find everything, and also again maybe another plug for Empowered to Act, because Juliana, you're saying, what do? You're captured, Altamont Springs area. There's local level. That might be something where, okay, we do need to find some candidates at the local level, and maybe some of us who have the fire under us either need to help that candidate figure out how to get them plugged in and get them going for the next election, or maybe you need to be the candidate. Maybe we need to have a vote for Juliana and next time around, because look, man, the cavalry, the cavalry is us. There's no one coming to our rescue.
It is.
And I was looking at Fox News, and they're going on about a big segment about, look at the new bills for internet safety for children. That's going to be a big thing they're going to push. I mean, it already is, but they're pushing it more. That has nothing to do with keeping our kids safe. It's everything to do with digital track and trace and getting everybody's information, because there's no way they can tell a minor from an adult unless you have the minor and the adult's information at the same time to compare and see. And again, as I said yesterday, parents need to be the ones to protect their children from online whatevers. And if that means turning off online for a period of time, or if that means keeping the computer in the living room, or if that means maybe they don't have a smartphone or something, maybe they may give them the big brick like Gordon Gekko had, if they need the phone, I don't understand why we go. Well, I do understand, because we think that government needs to do everything for us, and we live in a bizarre world where a country that defeated communism is now voting for communists and electing them to office, state by state and district by district.
Andrew, look,
those of us who are awake need to do something with our awakeness.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's actually a perfect segue into the rundown. So for the last 3 years, Juliana and I have been focused with Watchman Action as a ministry, coming up with a training system and a workbook that helps you to tell your story, organize and mobilize your people, and measure your success for these exact reasons.
Exactly.
These battles are going to be won at the local level. So here's our deal. In less than a day, the Watchman Action training curriculum can have you and your group ready to go advocate for the issue that matters most, because it gives you the courage and the structure to go out and win those battles.
Yeah. Everybody who is looking to be able to start talking about things that are important to them, want to start advocating for things, especially if there's a group of you that wants to come together, or a church, an organization, we want to talk to you. We want to help you make sure that you're pinpointing, you're doing exactly what you need to do to get to the end goal, because we, the people, need to lock arms. Everybody has their lane. Let us help you sharpen your lane so that you can go be great at what it is that you want to do.
Amen. Andrew, people can find everything Watchman Action. They start at watchmanaction.org. If they're looking for us on the socials, all the handles are the same, Watchman Action. You can also watch us on the Beck cable system in North Dakota. The Watchman Action Network is 24/7 on Channel 40, and the Spin Cycle airs weeknights, 9:30 p.m. Eastern on the network. So please join us.
All right. For Juliana Ormond, R.C. Williams, I am Andrew Southwick. This has been the Spin Cycle. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.